Oo. Alam naman natin mga kotsero na si PBBM ay nasa Australia ngayon. At dahil diyan, oo, na-interview siya sa ABC, guys. At nakuha natin yung interview, pag-uusapan natin ngayon. Okay. Pero mga kotsero, konting background, ito pong interview na to ay naganap after, a few days after, merong mga Australian senators na nagprotesta laban kay PBBM. Alala nyo to? Alala nyo to? Yan. Karen Janet Rice. Ayan siya. So naalala natin to lahat last Friday yata to. Feb 29. Last week. Ngayon, meron na namang hindi ko alam kung publicity stunt ba to or something, etc. etc. But meron na namang drama kay PBBM kanina. Alam nyo, nakakatawa na lang actually. Marirealize nyo kung gaano ka-misinformed ang buong mundo regarding sa sistema ng Pilipinas at kung ano na ang nangyayari sa bansa. You'll get what I mean pag napanood nyo to.
President Marcos, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you very much indeed.
In your speech to the Australian Parliament, you used unusually strong language. Quoting your own pledge, you said, "I will not allow any attempt by any foreign power to take even 1 inch of our sovereign territory. We will not yield." Are you talking about not giving up
Yield?
Philippines' territory in the South China Sea?
Absolutely. It is my sworn duty, and the sworn duty of the entire government of the Republic of the Philippines to defend the Constitution of the Philippines. And the first article of the Constitution is the definition of our territorial waters.
You didn't name China either in your answer or indeed in the speech that you gave to Australia, but it appears to be present in every security move that you make, and indeed behind every speech that we've seen you make recently. How urgent a priority is it to counter the fast-growing military power of China?
Well, we don't see it in those terms. We don't see it as countering the military power of any country whatsoever. It's merely the defense of our territory. We have territorial conflicts with other countries, Malaysia, for example, and Vietnam. But we have come to an arrangement with them, and that to resolve any such conflicts peacefully.
So, I mean,
Okay, pag-usapan natin yan ng konti. Pero as usual, bago tayo magpatuloy sa ating kwentuhan ngayong gabi, tayo muna ay mag-shoutout sa mga kaibigan natin sa Sendwave! Yan. So kayo po ay nasa US, UK, Canada, Italy, France, Spain, Ireland, and Belgium. May pwede na po ay magpadala ng inyong mga remittances sa Pilipinas gamit ang Sendwave nang wala pong remittance fees. Ang gagawin nyo lang ay download ang Sendwave app, gumawa kayo ng account, lagay nyo yung bank account details nyo dyan at pwede na ay magpadala sa GCash, sa mga bangko at iba't ibang mga bangko sa pawn shop sa Pilipinas. At kapag ginamit nyo pa kayong promo code na Coach Jarret, ayan no, makakuha pa kayo ng karagdagang $20 free credit. Kaya gamitin na mo sa Sendwave for all of your remittance needs. Alam nyo kasi mga kotsero, parang itong si reporter na to, may agenda siyang gustong ilabas. Una, napansin ko, etong si ate, gusto niyang ilabas na si PBBM quote-unquote anti-China. And I guess that's one way of mischaracterizing kung ano yung nangyayari dito sa bansa. And buti na lang sinabi ni PBBM yan, yung sagot niya na yan. Kasi this is not about yung nangyayari sa yung ginagawa ngayon ni PBBM at ng Marcos administration dito sa Pilipinas regarding West Philippine Sea ay walang kinalaman sa pagiging aggressive natin sa against one country or another. Kasi hindi naman ganyan ang Pilipino. It's not part of our culture. Hindi tayo ganyan mag-isip eh. Hindi tayo hanap away, hindi tayo hanap gulo. Kapag nga yung mga kapitbahay natin nag-aaway, hindi natin pinapakailaman eh. Anong sinasabi natin? Bahala sa buhay nila. Ano mangyari dyan? Etc. etc. Kaya nga minsan, nagkakapatayan na sa kabilang bahay, hindi pa natin alam eh. Wala tayong pake. Diba? So tayo mga Pilipino, we don't really, we're not confrontational. But in this case, parang gustong ilabas ni ate reporter, na kaya natin ginagawa yung ating mga partnerships and treaties and agreements with other countries, para labanan natin si China. No, that's not the case. Kaya mabuti, sinabi dito ni PBBM na hindi kami nandito para makipag-away. Nandito kami para protektahan yung teritoryo namin. So, buti na lang sinagot yan ni PBBM, di ba? So, at least that's one question down.
Right in saying that you don't have that capacity to resolve conflict with China in the same way. Do you actually have direct contact with the Chinese?
We have at several levels. At several levels. In fact, in January of last year, when I went to Beijing and I visited with President Xi Jinping, that is what I proposed, a kind of hotline between us, so that if there is a message that needed to be sent from one president to another, we can be assured that that message will reach them. And we have sort of established there are several points of contact at the ministerial level, certainly, and the sub-ministerial level as well.
But do you have a personal line to President Xi?
Not yet, I'm afraid.
Let me just
Not yet, I'm afraid. Wala, talo siya ni Digong doon. Si Xi Digong may direct line kay Xi Jinping. Matindi. Not yet, I'm afraid. So, yan. Hindi ko alam kung ba't kailangan pa niya itanong yun. Na meron ba siyang direct line kay Xi Jinping. I don't think it will accomplish anything. What does that mean? So what kung may direct line? You have kaya nga meron kang DFA, kaya nga you have a Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Kasi sila yung maikipag-usap. And even if it's president to president, I don't think it's that important, quote unquote. Kasi again, ang official communication ng state, ng estado, ay hindi nanggagaling sa presidente. Nanggagaling yan sa foreign affairs. Kaya nga nandyan yung DFA. Trabaho nila yan eh. So hindi ko lang kung bakit medyo pinasok ni ate yung ganung teritoryo. Siguro gusto lang niyang ilabas na yung dating presidente has a personal connection kay Xi Jinping and apparently you don't.
just ask you this question. I want to come to the what it is that you want from Australia, because that's obviously one of the reasons for your visit and your speech, as well as ASEAN. But the former president of the Philippines, Duterte, was making overtures to China, very strong ones. Have you decisively moved away from Chinese influence and back into America's orbit?
I think it's important to make it very, very clear. Whatever the Philippines does because it is in our interest, not because it has been dictated upon us by anyone.
You don't
Sakto yung sagot na yun. Yun na yun, mga kotsero. Wala nang ibang hahanapin doon. Pag hindi mo pa naintindihan yun, ewan ko na lang. Kasi ang gusto palabasin ni ate, lumayo tayo sa China, kumampi tayo sa Amerika. Parang ganun parang black and white Kaya buti na lang, pinremis ni BBBM na whatever, kung ano man yung namin ngayon, kung ano man yung polisiya namin ngayon, it's not because someone invited us to be part of a team or a group or whatever. It's not because someone invited us. It's because iniisip namin yung interest ng Pilipinas. Balikan natin yan.
The Philippines does because it is in our interest, not because it has been dictated upon us by anyone.
You don't think
Kasi mga kotsero, kailangan niyang sabihin yan You know why? Kasi yan ang narrative ng China. Yan ang narrative ng China. Ang gusto nilang parating sa buong mundo, kaya tayo nang ikipag-alyansa sa Amerika, sa Australia, sa South Korea, sa Japan, India, and Canada, UK, etc., etc. Kaya tayo nang ikipag-partner sa kanila is because we want to fight with China. No, it's not. Ang issue po dito is not whether we want to fight with China or not. Kaya ang issue dito is ano ba yung mas beneficial para sa Pilipino? Ano ba yung mas makakabuti para sa Pilipinas? And that's it. Right now, mga kotsero, ang pinaka-importante na interes na dapat unahin ng Pilipino ay yung Pilipinas. Kaya nga nagtataka ako bakit nung panahon ni si Digong, akala ko ba interes ng Pilipinas ang uunahin. Tapos ang nangyayari, interes lang ni China yung nangyayari. Yun lang ang nabututuunan ng pansin. O, sabihin natin, may mga every now and then, may mga batas na maipapasa, etc. etc. But you know, signing a law is one thing, but implementing it is another. O, tignan nyo yung National Healthcare Act. Yung Universal Healthcare Law pala, Universal Healthcare Law, na nagmamandate na taasan ng premium ng PhilHealth. Panahon pa ni Digong yan. Na-implement na ba yung pagtataas ng presyo ng PhilHealth? Hindi. Hanggang ngayon, nakasuspend pa rin. Pang ilang taon na. Nakababa na si Digong. Pbbm na. Nakasuspend pa rin. Bakit? Hindi kaya eh. Masyadong mahal eh. So, tuloy natin ngayon sa ate.
That your language that you used when you took office and the same language that you used in the Australian Parliament during your visit is a message to China about where you believe your interests lie.
Well, as I explained it to President Xi again, I said it's my duty. I took an oath to defend the Philippines. And anyone who will help me in that regard, I must engage with them.
Was your predecessor getting too close to China?
Well, I think the situation
So what?
between now and then is quite different.
Yun.
And I'm sure he did what what was in his judgment was the best. He did hew a little closer to China rather than the United States. And maybe because things have heated up a little bit. But we have a together with Australia, we have a visiting forces agreement with the United States and Australia. These are the only two countries that we have them with. And we have a mutual defense treaty with the United States, which has been there for decades.
How important is it?
Tignan nyo, nagkaroon siya ng pagkakataon ipahiya si Xi Digong, di niya ginawa. Tinanong na siya tungkol kay Xi Digong hindi pa rin niya ginawa. Masyadong mabait ito si Presidente Kung si Xi Digong yan, nasabi niya, di ba? What do we expect from the guy? Ano nasabihin nun? That was stupid. Ayan, brot. Kung si Digong yan, good luck. Asa ka. Mumurahin pa niya kung sino man yung predecessor niya. Buti pa siya ganyan. Buti pa siya ganyan, marunong diplomasya. Anyway, tuloy natin.
From your point of view, that Australia has chosen to acquire and build a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines.
Well, that decision is an Australian one.
Do you support it?
I support AUKUS. I support.
Bakit ba? Hindi ko naiintindihan bakit siya tinanong tungkol dyan sa nuclear-powered submarines. Alam niyo kung bakit? Hindi naman natin interest yun. Anong pake natin sa bansa nila? Di ba? Anong pake natin sa bansa? Why would you ask the president of another state if he or she approves of the decisions of the leaders of another state? Who cares? Bansa nyo yan eh. Tayo nga dati pinapakailaman sa Australia eh. Pinapakailaman ba tayo ng Australia? Hindi. Diba? Ang weird yung tanong. Actually, dito nag-umpisa mag-go down yung ng interview. It's so weird. Totoo lang. Dun sa parte na yun. Tuloy natin.
The Quad, and I think that this just represents a stronger front in terms of maintaining the peace, maintaining the peace in the South China Sea. It is a response, really, to a differing situation, a more dangerous, more risky situation than we had before.
Why is it more dangerous? Just explain.
Because the potential for outright conflict is much higher now than it was before. And we worry in the Philippines because it could come from not a strategic decision by anyone saying, okay, we're going to war, but just by making some serviceman making a mistake or some action
Correct.
that's misunderstood. And that's why
It's true.
the ongoing attempt is always to try and lower the temperature, ease up on the rhetoric, and communicate and just continue to communicate.
That's why you need the phone, the same phone that Khrushchev and Kennedy had, right?
That's right. Yes.
Well, let me try and understand what you might want from Australia. Would you expect the Australian Navy to come to the defence of Philippines forces in the event of conflict with China over disputed territory in the South China
Yun.
Sea?
Well, I suppose if we are in a we are in a joint exercise or in a joint operation, then perhaps that would involve Australia in that. But we do not have any formal agreement or treaty in that regard,
Tama yun.
as we do
Safe
with the
answer
United
yun.
States.
How would you explain to Australians, to Australian servicemen or women, why they should potentially risk their lives in the aid of Philippines under pressure from China? Why do we belong there?
Well, let
Pangit ang tanong ni ate. Bakit? Ang pangit ang tanong. Hindi ko alam kung bakit. Ewan ko, tinatry ko intindihin. Baka lang gusto makascoop ni ate. Doon sa tanong niya na yon. Kasi, alam nyo mga kutsero, hindi kailangan magsalita ni presidente, ng presidente natin sa Pilipinas, ha? Hindi niya kailangan magsalita para i-rationalize yung kanyang posisyon para sa Pilipinas. Ngayon, kung magsasalita, kung kailangan kumbinsihin ang army, ang servicemen and women ng Australia, Army ng Australia, Navy ng Australia, Air Force ng Australia, hindi trabaho ng presidente natin yun. Trabaho yun ng Prime Minister nila. Si Prime Minister Albanese dapat ang magpapaliwanag sa kanilang hukbo kung bakit natin kailangan tumulong sa Pilipinas. Hindi trabaho ni PBBM yun. Kaya nga ang weird ng tanong niya. Yung nagigets ko yung part tungkol dun sa bakit kailangang ma-involve ng Australia sa affairs ng Pilipinas. Yun, gets ko yun. Walang problema dun. Kasi nga naman, bakit? Pero kapag dating sa servicemen, hindi naman natin responsibilidad yung yung servicemen nila eh. Their servicemen will do what their state or their laws or their constitution will, mandates them to do. So, ang weird lang. Ang weird ng tanong. Hindi ko alam kung saan nahugot ni ate yung tanong na yon. Pero parang ang dating, sa akin lang naman, in my opinion, ang dating is, gusto lang makascoop ni ate. Na parang gusto niya merong, tatanong ko to kasi para, I don't know, to get a reaction from our servicemen, to get a reaction from our military, etc. We don't have a right to dictate kung anong gagawin ng hukbo ng Australia kasi hindi naman tayo nasa Australia. Presidente si PBBM ng Pilipinas. Kapag nag-uusapan natin, hukbo ng Pilipinas, si presidente talaga may doon. Siya yun. Sa kanya ang bagsak nun. Pero kapag sa Australia, hindi na natin trabaho yun. Sila na yun. But anyway, siguro nagiging mabait lang si PBBM for some reason. Sinagot din niya yung tanong.
Let me take us back to the Second World War, where the defense of Corregidor and Batan, which were the outposts that held out longest. But because of that, it delayed the invasion of Australia to the point that the Japanese never invaded Australia. And that, if we can stop it at an early stage, nip it at the bud, as it were, then there's no need for it to grow into other areas, other regions. And hopefully, if we can, at best, as I said, keep the peace in the South China Sea, that will be of great advantage to Australia because the peace is maintained.
In
Right.
relation to
Okay, wait. Si, change topic bigla si ate. Kasi nasopla siya dun sa tanong eh. Nasopla si ate dun sa tanong na yun. Bakit? Simple lang naman sinagot ni PBBM eh. Ano sinabi ni PBBM? Naalala niyo nung World War II? Umabot ba sa inyo yung mga Hapon? Di ba hindi? Bakit? Eh naipit sila sa Bataan tsaka Corregidor eh. Bakit kailangang sumali ng Australia? Bakit kailangan tumulong ang Australia? Sa Pilipinas? Bakit? Bakit kamo? Naalala mo ba nung World War II? Umabot ba sa inyo ang mga Hapon? Parang hindi yata. Bakit kaya hindi umabot sa inyo? Kasi oo, naipit yung mga Hapon dun sa Bataan tsaka sa Corregidor. Oo. Dun sila naipit eh. So baka naman gusto nyo kaming tulungan. sila Dati Trexie, sila pa may utang. Correct. Sila pa may utang na loob. Nasunog si ate. At anyway, dito na siya medyo mag-change topic.
the former president, it's clear from the outside that there's been some breakdown in the relationship. I mean, do you intend now to invite the ICC to the Philippines
ICC na.
conduct its investigation more fully into former President Duterte's murderous war on drugs?
No,
Magtanong si ate, lahat naka-premise, no? Lahat may lahat may qualifiers eh. Yung tanong ni ate, ganito sa Tagalog, ano ba kung usapang kanto lang? Kasi maganda yung usapang kanto, mas nagigets natin lahat eh. Kung usapang kanto lang, ganito. Eh di ba magkaaway na kayo ni Digong? Di ba magkaaway na kayo nung former president eh, di ba? So ngayon ba, dahil magkaaway na kayo, eh papaimbestigahan mo na siya sa ICC? Yung kanyang madugong war on drugs. Ganon, guys. Ganon. Yung kanyang bayulente at madugong war on drugs. Alam niyo, ito yung mga tanong ng mga makotsero na walang magandang sagot. Walang magandang sagot dyan. Bakit? Pag umuo ka, maaano mo agad, ma-alienate mo agad, marami agad magagalit sa'yo, lalo na dun sa parte ng mga pabor kay Duterte. May alienate mo agad yon, galit agad silang lahat sa'yo. Oo, papaimbestiga ko siya sa ICC. Di galit agad. May dahilan na naman si Roque magsisigaw. Magsisisigaw na naman siya ng bale-balentong. Presidente natin, bumalentong sa Australia. Ganon na sabihin ni Harry Roque. Ganon. Pag naman sinabi ni PBBM na hindi ko tao dito, hindi ko papapasukin ng ICC. Iisipin agad ng mga taong makikinig dito, so pabor ka dun sa madugong war on drugs. Loaded yung question. Hindi siya leading, loaded. Walang magandang sagot dito. Ang either way, mga kotsero, kahit anong sagot mo dito, mapa-oo, mapa-hindi, talo ka. Ganong klaseng tanong yan. Ang pangit mag-interview ni ate, nakakabuisit. Anyway, tuloy natin. Anong sagot ni BBBM?
that would be a political move. And what we are, we do not play politics
Yun!
with jurisdiction and sovereignty. And the position that we've taken is that we do not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC, and we view it as a threat to sovereignty, simply because the ICC was formed to conduct, to provide justice to areas where there is no judiciary, where there is no court system, where there is no police, where there is no peace and order. And that's not the Philippines. And therefore, I don't think that their investigations or their actions apply to the Philippines.
If it's not the ICC,
Sakto yung sagot ni Presidente doon. Sakto yun. Saktong-sakto yun. Best answer sa ganitong tanong yan, promise. Best answer yan, best answer. Anong sinagot niya? Simple lang. Yung sinasabi mo, political question yan, hindi ko sasagutin yan. Kasi it is. Yung tanong ni ate, it's a political question. Usapang political yun. kung ilalaglag niya si Digong, it's a political move. Buti hinuli agad ni PBBM. That's a political question. That's a political move. And we don't engage in politics. Saktong-sakto yun, guys. Saktong-sakto yun. We don't engage in politics. Saktong-sakto yun. Pasok sa banga. Parang kung nag-Miss Universe question yun, guys, panalo ka na. kung Miss Universe to, panalo ka na dun. We don't engage in politics. This is our position. Yun, sakto yun. Sakto yun, guys. Saktong-sakto yun. Ito ang posisyon namin. The ICC has no jurisdiction because the ICC should only be the court of last resort. Yung sinasabi ko lang naman yun. No? The court of last resort. Kapag walang judicial system, walang maayos na judiciary, saka lang papasok si ICC. O di wala nang ibabatikos ngayon itong si Harry Roque. Wala na siyang sasabing bale-balentong. Bakit? Sa Pilipinas pa nga lang sinasabi na niya yan. Pati sa Australia, sinabi din niya. Ano pa hanapin mo, Harry Roque? Maghahanap ka pa ng papel. Saktong-sakto yung sagot niya doon. Saktong-sakto yun. That's a good response. Pahinga ulit natin. Maganda yung response niya Ulitin natin yung tanong and then the response. Ulitin natin.
Breakdown in the relationship. I mean, do you intend now to invite the ICC to the Philippines to conduct its investigation more fully into former President Duterte's murderous war on drugs?
No, that would be a political move.
Yeah, see?
And
Ganda.
what we are, we do not play politics with jurisdiction and sovereignty.
Ganda nun, guys.
the
Promise. Kung sino man ang nakaisip ng ganitong response, malamang sa malamang, si PBBM din naman nag-isip niyan. Pero kung nakakuha siya ng tulong, kung sino man, that's the perfect response. Saktong-sakto talaga to, promise. Walang mababalik dito mga Duterte Balahura supporters. Ang ganda ng sagot niya dito.
Former President Duterte's murderous war on drugs.
No, that would be a political move. And what we are, we do not play politics with jurisdiction and sovereignty.
We don't play politics with jurisdiction and sovereignty. Oh, Diyos ko, napakaganda talaga. Ibig sabihin, mga kochero, hindi namin pinaglalaroan, hindi namin pinagtitripan o hindi namin gagalawin ang issue ng jurisdiction at soberenya. Bakit? Alam niyo, importante yun Ang jurisdiction kasi, yung, in-explain ko na to before, yung kapangyarihan ng korte sa kaso at sa tao. Hindi natin paglalaroan yan. Pangalawa, soberenya. Bakit? Ang soberenya nanggagaling sa taong bayan. So, that's the perfect response to this question. Hindi mo talaga dapat pinaglalaroan yun. So, you don't play politics with it. Huwag mong gamitin ang politika mo sa jurisdiction, sa korte, sa soberenya, sa taong bayan. Sakto yun, man. Sakto.
And the position that we've taken is that we do not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC.
Ano nang sasabihin ng
and
DITE
we
dito,
view it as a
DIED?
threat to sovereignty, simply because the ICC was formed to conduct, to provide justice to areas where there is no judiciary, where there is no court system, where there is no police, where there is no peace and order. And that's not the Philippines. And therefore, I don't think that their investigations or their actions apply to the Philippines.
If it's not the ICC, then who provides justice for the many thousands? I think the number is something like 12 to 30,000 people who were killed.
Source mo si Rappler, no, ate? Malamang sa malamang ang source ni ate si Rappler kasi si Rappler lang naman na nagbalita ng 12 to 30,000. The official number is 6,000. Official number yon. Galing yun sa PDEA at sa PNP. Yan ang official number. 6,000. Which is still, malaki pa rin yun. Kung tutuusin, that's 1,000 people killed per year. Sa 6 na taon. Ni Shidi Kong. That's 1,000 people killed per year. Malaki pa rin yun. Pero medyo inflated yung numbers ni ate. Siguro ang mga kaibigan nito si ate si Maria Reza.
to the Philippines.
If it's not the ICC, then who provides justice for the many thousands? I think the number is something like 12 to 30,000 people who were killed in former President Duterte's
Well,
war on drugs. How do they get justice?
I think we in the Philippines have, as I said, a functioning police force. We have a functioning judiciary, and that it was their responsibility to take care of that. We have made a great deal of progress in that regard, where many policemen have already been removed from service because they've been found to be liable. Their cases have been filed. Many are already in jail.
Do you think it adds up to justice for those people who lost their lives?
Well, what we try to do is to now go back to the families of those and see. But perhaps see what we can do to make things right for them.
Ba't mo tatanungin ng ganun? Bakit mo itatanong ng, is it already justice? May nakulong na nga eh. Di ba hustisya yun? Of course, you cannot, kapag hindi naman na yun hindi mo maibabalik sa previous state or sa previous na buhay nila kapag naibigay mo yung kaso or naipanalo mo yung kaso sa korte. Hindi naman automatic na babalik ka sa dati mong state. Siyempre, lalo na kung patay na yun, hindi mo na maibabalik yung patay sa buhay. Ayun lang, at least justice was served. At least, kahit merong miscarriage of justice nung una, nai-correct siya. Ang weird ng mga tanong ni ate dito, promise. Mukhang siya, para siyang mga kaibigan ni Maria Reza, ganun. Ganun yung datingan ng mga tanong ni ate.
As long as it can be shown, of course, that they were not actually involved in the drug trade. As I said very early on, we're not interested in a small-time addict, for example. The addict, you take them to the hospital, you take them to rehab.
Right.
You don't shoot them.
We don't. We said we've taken enforcement as far as we can, and it only gets you so far.
Your father was overthrown by
Yeah.
a revolution, and you are his only son. How do you resist the impulse to authoritarianism?
Alam mo, ang stupid nitong tanong na to, promise. Ang stupid nitong tanong na to. Alam mo, kung makarating man sa Australia tong video na to, that question of yours is not only leading but very, very, very insulting. Not only to the intelligence of the people listening to you, but to the person of our president. Ang stupid nun, guys. Ang stupid nun, promise. How do you resist the impulse to authoritarianism? Ano yun, genetic? Saan ka nakakita na, kailan pa naging genetic ang leadership style? Nakamarka ba sa DNA ng bawat tao ang leadership style? No, it's not. How do you resist the impulse? Ano yun? Sakit sa utak? Napanood yung sagot ni Pbbm dito.
I have no impulses to authoritarianism.
I have no impulses. I have no impulses to authoritarianism. Diyos ko. Maski nga yung mga kaalyado ni PBBM, maski yung mga kalaban ni PBBM sinasabi, masyado siyang mabait. The impulse to authoritarianism. What the F? What the F are you talking about, sister?
Whatsoever. We have a good system going. We are, I think we've learned to, we have a constitution that we have, that we have gone by for the last 36 years now. We are hoping to make some changes to it. But
you've been a politician for a very long time. You have a very clear understanding of your country's history. And you obviously revere your father. I've seen you talk about him. Do you also understand the costs of his authoritarian rule? to people in the Philippines?
Well, it was a very different sort of authoritarian rule. I think when people think of an authoritarian rule, it was non-participatory. Whereas I think the version that my father tried to promote and actually practiced was very much still with the participation of all stakeholders that
May
were
bata sa
involved.
pambansa ka nga.
It was just a peace and order situation that really dictated the necessity for the declaration of martial law.
Let me just understand the make sure that we're talking about the same thing. I think amnesty
Hindi matanggap ni ate yung sagot eh. Hindi niya matanggap yung sagot eh na yung authoritarianism na gusto niyang makuha kay PBBM. Kasi gusto niyang makuha is yung tatay ni PBBM, diktador. Ala Hitler, ala Lenin, ala Mao Zedong, ganun klaseng diktador na walang pakialam kung mamamatay yung mga taong nakapaligid sa kanya, basta sila yung pinuno. Ganun yung gusto niyang makuha na image ng diktador kay PBBM. Kaya ngayon, nasabihin niya, ilulusot niya ngayon, ang sagot sa kanya ni PBBM, hindi naman ganyan yung pagiging authoritarian ng tatay ko. Pagiging authoritarian niya is very participatory, which is, it is also true. Bakit? Paano nagkaroon ng mga rally? Martial law, nakakapag-rally ka? Saan nakakita ng ganun? Martial law, nakapag-Muslim secession ka? Martial law, nakapagtatag ka ng NPA? Martial law, merong batasang pambansa at merong Ninoy Aquino na bumabati ko sa'yo? Saan ka nakakita ng diktador na ito-tolerate mo ang isang Ninoy Aquino? Bibitayin mo yun sa sarili mong bansa. Hindi mo na siya tatanggalin sa Pilipinas. Bibitayin mo na siya. Let's go. Tuloy natin.
records that during that period 70,000 people were imprisoned, 34,000 tortured, and 3,200
Amnesty
people killed
International
in the
yan.
numbers. And your father in an interview admitted that over 50,000 were detained. So I just want to ask you again, do you accept that there was a human cost
Oh yes,
to that rule?
there always is. It was war.
Yun.
And
Tapos.
with war, the death and destruction is inevitable. But this is a war not declared by the government of the Philippines. This was declared a war. These wars were declared on the government of the Philippines, and both of them were. One was to divide the country, and the other one was to remove the present political system by armed struggle.
There is one
Nasopla si ate. Oo, may human cost talaga. Gera nun eh. Saan ka lang nakakita ng gera na wala namamatay? Tama naman. Sinabi niya, during that time, merong isang grupo na gusto ng secession. Want to break up the country. Ano na yon? MNLF. Tapos meron namang isa na gustong pabagsakin ng gobyerno. Ano naman yun? CPP, NPA. Quit na. Quit ka na. Kanina ka patablado. Tama na. So, sinabi niya, and your father even admitted to around 50,000. It makes sense kasi gera nga. Feeling ko talaga mga barkada nito si Maria Reza eh. Dito si ate. Feeling ko talaga barkada mo si Maria Reza. Promise.
one series of questions that comes up in relation to your father's time, which is of course the question of corruption, which became wholly associated with the Philippines for a long period of
Nako na
time.
yaman.
I think contemporary court judgments acknowledge the atrocities that were committed, but also the plunder of the country's resources. Why wouldn't you want all of that money back in the hands of the Filipino people?
Ang pangit talaga, ang baho ng tanong mo, te. Ang baho ng tanong ni ate, promise. Isa sa mga issue tungkol sa pamilya mo is yung plunder of the country. Bakit ayaw mong ibalik yung pera ng bayan? What the F? Loaded na naman yung question. Ang baho ng mga tanong na to ni ate. Diyos ko, nag-toothbrush ka ba ngayon? Nag-toothbrush ka ba nung interview na yan, te? Baho ng mga tanong mo, baho na lumalabas sa bibig mo. Ang baho na lumalabas sa bibig mo, te, promise. Alam nyo, it's very obvious na itong tao na to, I don't even know her name. Obviously, itong tao na to is pandering on the propaganda against the Marcoses. It's very, very obvious. It's very, very obvious. Baka yung mga nakakausap nito ni ate, mga makakaliwang grupo sa Australia, mga tropa ni Maria Ressa or si Maria Ressa mismo, na yung feeling ko hindi na siya nakakakuha ng ibang impormasyon tungkol sa Pilipinas eh. Mukhang hindi niya alam na dito sa Pilipinas walang napatunayan sa mga kaso eh. Ano lang yung ni-recognize yung sa GR 152154 yung tungkol dun sa Swiss accounts. But that's about it. And it's not even a criminal case. It's a civil case. Hindi naman nakakapagpatunay yun na stolen. Kasi basahin niyo yung decision. It's only a recognition that there's a possibility that we don't know where this money of the Marcoses came from. But it's not a criminal case. It's not a criminal decision. Na oo, criminal yung mga Marcoses kasi nakakaw na yaman. Sa Amerika nga eh, may grand jury ka, RICO case laban kay Apo Lakay tsaka kay Madam Imelda. Dismissed yung kaso. Mga kotsero, yun, criminal case yun. Criminal case yun, mga kotsero. Tapos ang pagbabasihan ni ate, yung civil case na desisyon ng Supreme Court. Well, with all due respect sa Supreme Court, but it's a civil case. Civil case yun. O, pakinggan natin sabihin ni Pbbm.
Well, we the narrative.
May I just ask you why that's funny?
Well,
Triggered si ate. Why, that's funny.
that
Why that's funny? I'm asking you a question about the plundering of large sums of money
no,
from the Filipino people.
I'm thinking that maintains that idea maintains because it.
Triggered si ate. Siguro iniisip ni PBBM dito, napaka-unbelievable naman tong babaeng to. Ay nako, it's very obvious ate. It's very obvious na meron kang gustong hugutin. Tapos nung hindi mo nakukuha, dadaanin mo sa sarcasm. Excuse me, may I ask you, what is funny? What is funny about the plunder of your country? Lang yato. Ayop. Nagtatanong siya ng question na hindi naman niya dapat tinatanong in the first place. Tapos matitrigger siya pag tinawanan siya. Loaded na ngayon mga tanong mo. Buti nga sinasagot pa ng presidente namin yan.
I take exception to many of the assertions that have been made, and I think we have since the cases were filed, the government fell. Cases were filed against me, my family, the estate, etc. And up to now, we have the assertions that were made, we have shown to be untrue.
Quite a lot of money. I think 5 billion was already recovered. I guess the question is just this: do you not want to see all the money that was taken returned to the people?
We have signed this.
Teka sa mukha ni ate. Obvious na hindi niya alam ang nangyayari sa Pilipinas. Tapos kaya sagot na lang sa PBBM. Yun na lang sagot niya. No. Again. So mga kutsara, maraming po salamat sa inyong patuloy na pagsuporta sa ating channel. Okay, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you again in our next live stream. God bless you and see you next time. Bye! Huwag ganun. Huwag natin gawing tanga mga Pilipino. Mas maganda kasi nasa lugar ka ng tama kaysa yung pinipilit mo yung pagkakamali. Are they willing to go that far? Hindi makakalimutan ng Pilipino yan hanggat di nasasagot niya. Sino ngayon nagsasabi ng totoo?